It was a bitterly cold morning, the kind that made every breath feel like shards of ice. James sat on the corner of 5th and Main, his tattered coat pulled tightly around him. The city moved around him in a blur, people rushing to work, cars honking, the occasional clink of coins landing in his cup. He had grown used to being invisible, just another shadow on the streets. But today something caught his eye. A sleek, black leather wallet lay just a few feet away, half hidden beneath a bench. It looked out of place, pristine against the grime of the city streets. James hesitated, his heart quickening. He glanced around, but no one seemed to notice it. Slowly he reached out and picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly. The wallet was heavy, and when he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. Inside was a thick stack of crisp $100 bills. James's stomach growled, a painful reminder of the hunger that had been gnawing at him for days. He thumbed through the cash. There had to be at least a few $1,000s, enough to buy food, a warm coat, maybe even a place to sleep for a few nights, enough to change everything. But then, tucked behind the cash, he saw something else, a driver's license. The name on it read, Richard Lawson. The photo showed a man in his 40s, well-dressed, with a confident smile. James stared at the picture, his mind racing. He could keep the money. No one would know. After all, life had been cruel to him. Didn't he deserve a break? A memory flashed through his mind. Years ago, before everything fell apart, he had lost his own wallet. It wasn't the money he missed, but the photos of his family, the little pieces of his life that he could never replace. He remembered the helplessness, the anger, the pain of knowing it was gone forever. James let out a long sigh, closed the wallet, and stood up. His legs felt heavy as he made his way to the nearest police station. Every step was a battle between temptation and integrity. He passed a man leaning against a lamppost who noticed the wallet in his hand. "Hey, buddy," the man called out. "That's a nice find. You keeping it?" James didn't answer. He just kept walking, his grip tightening on the wallet. When he finally reached the station, he hesitated at the door, his breath fogging in the cold air. He could still turn back. But then he thought of the man in the photo, and with a deep breath, he stepped inside. The officer at the desk looked up, surprised as James placed the wallet on the counter. "I found this," James said quietly. "It belongs to someone named Richard Lawson. Can you make sure he gets it back?" The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "You didn't take anything?" James shook his head. "It's all there." The officer opened the wallet, his eyes widening at the sight of the cash. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "You're an honest man." James didn't respond. He simply nodded and walked out, the cold air hitting him like a slap. He had done the right thing, but as he returned to his corner, he couldn't help but wonder if it had been worth it. Later that day, Richard Lawson arrived at the police station. He was a wealthy businessman, the kind of man who rarely had to worry about losing anything. But when he realized his wallet was missing, panic had set in. It wasn't just the money, it was the personal items, the irreplaceable things that couldn't be bought back. When the officer handed him the wallet, Richard was stunned. Everything was intact. "Who returned it?" he asked. "A homeless man," the officer replied. "Said his name was James. He's usually on the corner of 5th and Main." Richard was silent for a moment, his mind racing. A homeless man had found his wallet, filled with cash, and returned it without taking a single dollar. In a world where greed often overshadowed kindness, this act of honesty left a deep impression on him. "I need to meet him," Richard said. The next morning, James was back at his usual spot, trying to stay warm as the city came to life around him. He was lost in thought when a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and out stepped Richard Lawson. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and exuded an air of authority. But his expression was warm, almost gentle. "Are you James?" Richard asked, his voice cutting through the noise of the street. James looked up, startled. "Yeah, that's me." "I'm Richard Lawson," the man said, extending his hand. "You found my wallet and returned it. I can't thank you enough." James hesitated before shaking his hand. "It was the right thing to do," he said simply. Richard studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand the man before him. "Not everyone would have done the same," he said. "You've restored my faith in humanity." James shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone should do. Richard smiled. Well, I'd like to do something for you. Please, let me help. James frowned, unsure of what to say. Offers of help often came with strings attached, and he had learned to be wary. I don't need charity, he said quietly. This isn't charity, Richard replied. It's gratitude. Come with me. I want to show you something. Reluctantly, James climbed into the car. As they drove through the city, the streets became wider, the buildings taller, and the air cleaner. Eventually, they pulled up to a sprawling mansion, its grand entrance framed by towering oak trees. James stared in disbelief. He had never seen anything like it. This is my home, Richard said as they stepped out of the car. Come inside. The interior of the mansion was breathtaking. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls adorned with priceless artwork. James felt out of place, like an intruder in a world he didn't belong to. Over dinner, Richard asked James about his life. At first, James was hesitant, but Richard's genuine interest and kindness put him at ease. Slowly, he began to share his story, how he had lost his job, his home, and eventually his family. It was a tale of heartbreak and resilience, and Richard listened intently, his expression unreadable. When James finished, there was a long silence. Finally, Richard spoke. You've been through so much, he said, but you still chose to do the right thing. That says a lot about the kind of person you are. Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. He placed it on the table between them. This is the key to the guest house on my property. It's yours for as long as you need it, and when you're ready, I want you to come work for me. Not just as an employee, but as someone I trust. James's hands trembled as he picked up the key. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Richard replied. Just promise me one thing. When you're in a position to help someone else, pay it forward. Months later, James stood on the stage of a packed community center, addressing a crowd of people. He held up the wallet he had found that day. This wallet changed my life, he said. Not because of what was inside, but because of what it taught me. That kindness can open doors you never imagined. The audience erupted in applause and James smiled, a smile filled with hope, gratitude, and the promise of a brighter future.